I didn't exactly get a translation that. However, they changed their minds to skedaddle. How could they stick around to be sure it wasn't a misjudge? This is why you don't come to conclusions so quickly. Doubting instincts can help as well as listening. Not in their case. I was listening to them. It became a pain. Or it wouldn't be this long. I was sure that if I was up to my choice to confirm something supernatural, maybe it wouldn't be intriguing enough to want to become a paranormal researcher for the police as a hobby. I wouldn't see these people again. With every step further, I had another question about the origin of spirits. Did they choose to become ghosts based on how much good they'd done in life? Was the afterlife mandatory or until unfinished business was done? Like you haven't heard these questions before. What if said unfinished business folks couldn't be contacted without manipulation practice? Did they wear the same clothes they died in? Did they work in ghost offices? Okay, no. But why did they not appear to the naked eye, yet could make sounds or things move unwillingly or obliviously, show up in photos dating back to the oldest types of cameras? Full-bodied or not? Was it too much effort to be more than a head? Questions anyone could ask. I feel more sane by the minute. Maybe that was my job for them. Just pander to what they wanted to hear. I'm sure you could think of more questions. I could imagine plenty, longer than it would take for anything to phase. Like reincarnation related stuff involving before, middle, and after lives. That sounds more forensic. An expert who's absolutely certain might tell me bodies just expire and become totally random new ones by something's deciding. Or they're lazy and there's nothing. But this isn't about how Buddhist that sounds. There are a lot of neat theories, you have to admit, while not thinking too much about however contradictory they may get. No, I'm afraid it can't be helped. Someone listening in can't help but bring up religion at a certain point and get off topic misunderstanding evidence of a wannabe detective. Sometimes you die so quickly, but that's probably the people who don't know they're dead. Like a branch falling off this here tree. I couldn't disregard the biggest question of all in that moment. At least for me, how could I be so sure odd incidents in a particular exclusion were otherworldly? And not just things of the past, like so many others. Me, I didn't need to be believed, except of course by the true pros who could bring equipment if necessary later. I know what I see. I can tell hallucinations from not. I use my imagination properly. So perspective is those who needed to share could have made it a tourist attraction to boost the town's economy sky high. The only catch being whatever non-human, non-animal had made the swamp its habitat cooperated for business sake. What do you think the government would make the afterlife business? the afterlife like a prison that could be visited? I wouldn't appreciate my gimmicks being exploited either if I were it. So, if I had some chance to explain, maybe I'd be making a friend. They didn't say if they considered me a friend. Is it a prerequisite to not be one? Like a favor, not having a return? I mean, circus freaks, to use that term generously, didn't need to make a living. They didn't ask to be born that way. I'm sure their pride would get their conscious yapping that their appearance would wear off on their dignity. If money didn't exist, if I ever meet one, I'll ask how they live honestly, by either circumstance or choice or talent. Who's to say they don't have dearly departed pals they can tell either grievances to at the end of an off-kilter day? Heck, the departed likely look for folks like themselves to communicate out of loneliness or relating to feelings or whatever else. Is it the occupation themselves that made them realize their talent? It'd be forbidden to coin a word like, say, parastrange, because strange is in a way varying normality in this world or another dimension of it or the next. It's not strange to the one who perceives it constantly like a villain, not being a villain. Words in life sure don't correspond sometimes. Not to mention English. Thorough, through, trough, though. O-U-G-H-T. O. I look back, look forward, awaiting any sign of earthly life in there, or out there, should I say. Yet upon looking up again, the shutter shift, I brought up in pallid sunlight, paler than any diffuse spring evening's twilight. The longer I looked, the intensified the blurring focus became, as though it willingly closed in to make the climate infinitely stuffier than a rainforest on the equator and scorch it to a desert bigger than the rest of town. At the risk of sounding conspiracy theory, I squinted and averted my eyes by the biggest instinctual intention not to be blinded by a giant tank lamp in the sky. Granted that were still the sky. I'm self-aware here. Something here thought I was trespassing as those before I played trench on my mind to drive one out, I gathered. Commendable. Nobody likes intruders. No matter what you are. Maybe that's what it means to be human. I held my palms out to my forehead and waved my head about rapidly and dramatically to wear off the effect before it became like a headache, let alone a migraine. While already begging whatever entities causing it to stop, in my mind, I heard a high-pitched whine like a radio-like signal becoming louder as it approached. After a Doppler effect fashion, it lasted off 20 seconds and ended. Everybody said ghosts, nobody said aliens. Nobody said ghost aliens. Nobody didn't say it. With obvious hesitance, I removed my hands from my head and deduced my own pressure and realized I was on my knees in the dirt. Before the mud. Luckily, my chest heaving, my brow sweaty, I stood on one knee to regain my balance and waited out feeling woozy. I told you every single experience was different, yet the same thing. The same could be said about a lot of things. experience-wise, place-wise. I pulled a vine, or whatever it was, pretending to be, and supported the rest of my weight to regain my composure. I shook my head with the full force of a heavy sleeper just waking up. It helped to clear my tunnel vision a bit more, without a tunnel. Breaking through the dam of my mind's conscious, flooded analogies, supposedly better than dropping dead right there. If that wasn't a paranormally induced experience a moment ago, is the swamp only full of airborne hallucinogens? Wait, is this a prank by those people? By spirits with senses of eternal humor goofing the next generations? Well, those people just in on it? What's next? Someone scuba diving in the bog up ahead? This reminds me of something my grandpa once said about savage tribes. Savage tribes in South America or Africa may try to murder you for your shoes. Well, circle of life indeed. Having all these intertwine and overlap like a crowd, it quickly and assuredly dawned upon I that the muffled radio interfered screeching whistle was the same result I heard now and then just down the road anyway. I didn't see any cars around, so clearly up close it's only intensified. A car would probably sink in here. That much remains in how something possibly involves ghosts. Keeps them earthly, or at least around here just some account to be buried among others in rumors deeper than the bodies left behind 6 feet under, to grasp whatever essence they had in life. I'm figuring if there's more than ghosts, they're not going to just be equally pandering to cliches either. Some can float, some can disappear, some can't. Some seem determined. Now this was my cue to bellow cliches like, show yourself, but I'm not one to be 110% sure ghosts have any sort of advanced hearing over rather disturbed birds in broad daylight, or nor more animals on account of not expecting human voices on their turf, any more than the last bunch of intruders. As such is what I did see that I had to be more concerned about regarding welfare of all remaining intact for later. They had as much natural right to protect their habitat property as much as any living creature. Not to say they aren't living in a different plane. Behind the curtain, if you will. If it possessed the intelligent conscience and free will still, living or post-living, I can't say undead. I can only respect that anywhere. I gotta go about it properly, professionally, if anyone ever did. I can also respect the possibility anymore that it was fortunate I had no cross around my neck to hold up to try to keep anything at bay. For if I encountered one with one, they may laugh or confess. No effect. Not that it was anywhere near my intention not to come in peace. And I also speak cliches after all. I go on in also not meaning to crash some kind of ghost party or gathering if this particular bunch had them, or if any either even existed, they wouldn't ask for ID or a license. So, no ghost offices. On the other hand, if they took my word for it, I'd be as observant as someone hired by National Geographic to take photos of wildlife.